Welcome to Beyond the Firewall, the business bitecast, where tech and business collide. Get expert insights, real-world strategies, and the latest trends in bite-sized episodes. Stay ahead, stay secure, and explore what's beyond the firewall. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Beyond the Firewall, where we discuss more than just technology, and we bring real business conversations to the forefront. Today, we're very privileged to have Carolina from Digital Arkitechs with us. She's the founder and mastermind behind all the marketing that you can dream about. Welcome, Carolina.
Hi, Erez. How are you? Nice to meet you all.
Awesome. Did you dig out enough snow this weekend? Because I know we got 2 feet almost over the weekend this week.
It was crazy. I'm tired thinking about it and looking at the banks outside. It was awful.
I know, and it's crazy.
I'm done with winter.
No,
it can go away. It can go away now.
I know.
I've had my fair share. I don't want any more.
I know.
Please stop.
We're not done. So I think we got another 2 more weeks before we're going to get warmer weather.
Whatever happened to early spring?
The Groundhog Day? Yeah, I think we're definitely going to be going for a second vote on that one. So
yeah.
Well, we'll see. So, really excited having you on our podcast, and like to kind of understand who you are, what you've been going through, and obviously, the creation of Digital Arkitechs and sort of how that came about. Why don't you give us a little bit more about who you are and what's going on behind Digital Arkitechs?
So Digital Arkitechs was founded officially 2 years ago when I had a long story short change of companies. I was CEO for web development and design studio. They also did digital marketing. I was in charge of most of the marketing stuff for that agency. And when we went separate ways, I started Digital Arkitechs. We've, been very blessed to grow over the last 2 years, and we do basically anything that has to do with your digital presence, digital marketing, anything from websites to social media marketing, paid advertisement, and we do podcasting production. And, Erez, you've been a huge part of our success as well as a good partner. So, we partner on this podcast stuff too. So thank you for the opportunity to have us here and also to work with you.
All right, pleasure, and congratulations on all the success. Being an entrepreneur is never an easy thing, and getting off the ground and getting your first client and going through the challenges of the first couple of years can be overwhelming and daunting. And for those entrepreneurs out there, everybody can feel the struggle. It's not unique to anybody. It's a reality that we've all been through. This week actually marks our 22nd anniversary, and we'll be starting our 3rd year in operation this week. It's been an ongoing challenge. Thank you. Never ends. So it's exciting all at the same time, and I think we all should take a moment and think about it. So Digital Arkitechs, really interesting. I love the name. I think it's really creative because at the end of the day, social media and advertisement and all this stuff, it's not new. It's relatively established. It's considered today a mandatory requirement in all businesses. And when we look at how we tackle that, everybody's got a different flair. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about the unique value proposition about what makes your firm a success at this point, since you're such a young company, but you've acquired a decent amount of customers, and you've had some great success over the last 24 months.
Yeah. So what makes us different, I think, is that we concentrate and focus all of our efforts in making automation for not just marketing, but in general, and access to AI tools and, how we do marketing slightly different. So we're trying to use all the tools and resources available to help us, be more efficient, but also to help our clients. Behind all of that, it's also the software platform that we started as a SaaS, that we then empower our clients and encourage them to use it to grow their business. We want to, free up time that they're spending in marketing, and use the tools that we have available so that process is easier for the business owner and ourselves to be able to do all the things that we want to offer our clients. So, because it's so a big topic when we're talking about marketing, digital marketing, you're touching so many different aspects of a business, right? It's not just, the social media, but, you have email marketing, you have website management. Now with, AI, you have, the bots on the websites and the implementation and conversation AI. So all those things have to, they play a part and a role on digital marketing. And for the clients, for most people, they're too busy with their business to understand all that's happening behind the scenes. So that's our job, right? To be up to date on all the tools and resources and automations and AI so that we can help and serve our clients better.
Really amazing. Really amazing. Typically, your customer sizes are, more established companies or startups or enterprise. What kind of market are you hitting up these days?
We're in the small, medium-sized businesses. We do a little bit of startups, but our ideal client needs to have a little bit of resources to be able to do all the things that we want to offer them, right? So at least have some marketing budget. It's pretty important because we both know marketing is not cheap.
Right.
It all comes with a cost. So companies that, if I had to describe it, it is probably 10 plus employees, probably somewhere around the minimum to probably 20, 25 million in revenue, somewhere in there. Not too big where they already have, a full marketing team. Although we work with companies that have marketing teams, they just need, experts on something specific. So we work with companies that have marketing teams, but they don't have SEO experts. So we come in and we act as part of their marketing team, but with the expertise on just that one thing. Some of them will come and say, hey, we're revamping our website. They have marketing, so we work with them for content, but we do all the designing and all the development of websites. So there's different scenarios, but for the most part, it's a mix of, you either have a team, but not an expert on a topic, or in some cases is they have the marketing, but they want paid advertisement or a LinkedIn expert. So we'll bring in that expertise and manage their campaigns for them. So it just really depends. Size is usually, I think it's more of needs than size.
Right.
I'm a fractional CMO, so that type of business for us is really good because they're usually in that transition when they don't need full executives, they need fractionals, so we can bring in the whole agency as a fractional marketing team for the business.
Amazing. Yeah, it's
which
very
is what
similar to
we've
our
done
business
with
model.
you, right?
Yeah, definitely. And it's like our business model. Like, why would I try to tackle on my own marketing when I don't have the time for it? And B, I'm not that great at it. So I always look at it in the same context. We have our small clients or small business clients where we're doing fully managed services. And then the larger clients, we do co-managed. And then for the enterprise type customers or larger enterprise type customers, we do fractional CIO services just to sort of give guidance or framework to some of the solutions that they may be looking for. And hopefully their team can build on that. So definitely, I see the comparison on that. And it's definitely very hard to stay on top of all the different changes that are going on in every industry today, that even an in-house team that may be there could be struggling on keeping up with all the latest trends and technologies that are coming out. And being familiar
Exactly.
with all the touch points is just a full-time job right there. Having that broad spectrum and having a team that can come in, even parachute in for that project, I think it's critical and key because all organizations today are looking for those types of solutions. So good on you for kind of making that happen and constantly bringing out new solutions to your clients.
Thank you.
So, yeah, so a couple questions, what I've been running a business now for over 20 years. Marketing has evolved so significantly in the past 10 years, more rapidly than before. And I would say in the last 4 or 5 years, we've seen again a massive shift. We were reliant on Google and Google pay-per-click and stuff like that. But like, what are you seeing today as a current challenge for most businesses in, let's call it the 2 to 20 million or $2 to $50 million zone? What are the current challenges of most businesses today with marketing and online marketing and all the types of marketing that we're talking about today?
I think managing the amount of different channels that are available, like social media networks, and there's so many of them, deciding which ones to use, when to use them, how to use them, when to use email marketing versus a paid campaign online, when to use Google versus using paid ads for social media. I think because it's such a wide field and so many options, just a regular business owner just doesn't have the time to sit there and understand all the deciding factors for when to use what. And so I think that's become a challenge. And I think also, if I, as a business owner, not marketing, but with all the options, like there is new AI tools coming out every day for marketing, just trying to decide what to use, when to use it, I think it's also probably a challenge that they're
So
facing just because there's so much of it.
that's a very good question. So like if I were starting, let's assume I'm on the smaller end of the spectrum and I was starting a
Hmm.
business today, or, I've got a business, we're doing well, but we're trying to establish some sort of marketing. What would be my sort of, call it, key struggles or current focus points on that I would like to, like, what would you recommend for those small businesses that are trying to rehash it? And obviously they have limited resources. So it's two different perspectives, right? If you have a small business, with 10, 20, 30 employees, they're trying to get a bit of a better bang for their buck on their marketing budget versus an more established, like, $30 million company with 50 to 100 employees, different conversation there. So if you're on the
Hmm.
small spectrum, what would you focus your efforts on with today's current trend to try to bring
Um,
maximum value?
So if I was looking as a small business owner, so this could go two ways because obviously you have small business owners, B2B and then B2C, right?
Right.
And so I'll answer to both of them a little bit. So if you are any small business, the first thing that I would always recommend is, even if it's a one-page website, but don't start with a crappy website. Just think of it as, that's nowadays the first thing people are going to see about you and your company. It's no longer like one of those optional things, that you can just kind of slap together and put it on.
Yes.
It says a lot about the business and the company and how much you care when they go and they see a well put together website that represents your brand. And then make sure, of course, that you've done your due diligence with your local SEO. Make sure you're showing up on Google as a local business. If you are indeed a local business, if you operate remote, you can still do it. But for B2C especially, you really do want to have that presence in Google local businesses because you want to make sure that you're ranking for your city and where they can find you easily. For B2B, the conversation is slightly different. Yes, you still have to, work your SEO. Just think of your website is your new version of a business card, right? The first thing that people do when they hear about a business is they Google it. So make sure, your online reputation is well managed, that you are collecting Google reviews, and that you are kind of like, doing your due diligence with how people are reviewing your business. Make sure you have good solutions for that. That's something we do for our clients regularly. Make sure that, that profile, baby, that profile, like it's part of your business, because Google can make you or break you. And then for the B2B, it's slightly different conversations, because you still have to do all those things. But if, as a B2B business, you have to then really worry about your LinkedIn, right? Because that's where you'll find most of the B2B. So, make sure your company has a really good LinkedIn profile. Make sure you have a really good LinkedIn profile that speaks of your experience and your company and all that stuff. And then, make sure that you are, generating all of those like online directories, links like Yelp and all those things too, just because they're so important, right? Like restaurants need to have all of those links to, to not just show in Google, but other places. And it goes the same for B2B, right? Like there's plenty of B2B directories for different things, and you just got to be mindful to get all those things looked after. They're not all equally important. I will rank website, Google presence, probably the top two priorities, and then your SEO and making sure that, that you're ranking for the right search terms so that you're showing up. And funny enough, another thing that that now pops up is not just SEO, but AI, basically, right? Because now you want to also show up when people are searching things like GPT, Perplexity, right? So you gotta, have that now in mind, so that if people say things like, type searches like, what's business, whatever, best IT company in Toronto, that Google AI is also ranking you. ChatGPT is also mentioning you, right? So those are things that, they're just starting. So you want to be quick to act and make sure that you are jumping on that, to make sure that you are top of that search engine as well. That's
Wow.
what
I
people
didn't
are
even
doing
know
now, right?
Google and I didn't even know that Google and ChatGPT are like actually using those algorithms, because it actually makes sense that people are now searching through ChatGPT or any AI bot, what's
Yep.
the best IT or what's the best service company in my neighborhood, instead of using
Yep.
the standard conventional Google search. Now you've got a new search engine that's kind of giving those recommendations. And I've never even thought about that. So where do you begin with that? Like, that's a whole different, how do you get your name into a chat bot or a chat GPT engine so that they make reference to you? I think that's incredible. Just thinking about that.
Yeah. So you're feeding the machine your content. You're training them to take you as part of the recommendation, which is not an easy task. So obviously it's
Wow.
something that's very new, but it is something that's coming. Like, you hear all of these stuff now about, is AI replacing SEO? And the reality is it's not replacing it, it's transforming it. So it's not, is my website going to come at the top of the search? But the question is now more about, is my website the top recommendation on the Google AI, or, Copilot on, if you are in, what's the name? I forgot. The Microsoft one, right?
That's Copilot. Yeah.
So,
Microsoft
no, the
Copilot,
search.
ChatGPT. Oh, Bing.
The president Bing, right? So, and
Yes.
you have to think about those things. Like, it's not just Google, right? Like, you have Bing,
Right.
right? So is Copilot going to recommend you? It's ChatGPT going to recommend you? It's Perplexity. It's, Gronk with Twitter, Facebook with their own, and they all have. So now you're looking, before you're looking social media, different social networks. Now you're looking at ChatGPT, Perplexity, and then the list goes on and on and on. That's why I said, for a business owner that does not know a lot about all of these things, that is overwhelming. Like, how do you go and train all of these different now AIs to recommend you as their top pick for IT in Toronto or web design in Kitchener, right? So just think about all those things are now factors that business owners have to think about, because it is important, right? It is relevant.
Oh,
If
it's
you don't start
huge.
now, and somebody else does, then they're the top result, and you're left behind. You're in rear view mirror. So
Oh, totally. It's huge. And it's interesting. So like you've shine a light on me for something I didn't even think about, because like I use it and what's the word? I'm blind to thinking about the actions there. So, if I'm doing a trip to Niagara Falls and I'm like, okay, what's the best wineries in Niagara Falls? 3 years ago, it would be go to Google or go to the number one search engine of my choice, search
mhm,
top wineries in Niagara Falls. And it would give me the top 10 list based on its recommendation. And depending on how you worded that, you would get a different result from Google or any of the other search engines. And then now, actually, if I'm planning a trip, wherever
you're gonna go
Florida, and I
to
ask, ChatGPT or any,
ChatGPT.
and
Plan
I'd
my
go
trip
and
for me,
say,
right?
plan my trip for me, with hotels and
And
restaurants and
recommendations. Yeah.
the top, 5 destinations or sites to see in Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
It's doing the homework for me, which is much more efficient. I would tell you that it's incredible the way it does it, but it's very
Mm-hmm.
true. Like, if you're the hotel that's not on ChatGPT's list, how do you get there? And how is ChatGPT making those recommendations today? And is that influential? Like, can you make an influence to ChatGPT that you're the next hotel to visit or recommend? Are you the best family friendly restaurant when you're visiting Orlando versus the next restaurant beside you? Just like Google had influence by various, PPC and various reviews and whatever not, it's a whole different algorithm. And you're right. There's a whole bunch of other organizations like, X and Facebook and everybody else now has got a AI based, even my,
Paste it.
Amazon shopping now has an app
As
on it with a
yeah.
little AI in my Amazon shopping cart. Like, it knows me now with AI. So it's a very different thought process on how we're going to influence AI to recommend us. And I didn't
Mm-hmm.
even think about that's even possible. Never
And so when
mind
they talk about,
manipulating.
yeah, when we talk about SEO, it's now even more important than ever, because now you need to, I mean, let's be realistic, it's feeding information from everywhere, right? So it's Google, it's your own content, it's all of it, right? Now more than ever, you got to keep all of those things in perspective so that you're prepared for what's coming. And then the wave, I mean, this is just the starting of that wave, right? Like, we're only what, a year,
About a year.
about a year and a half
It's about a year.
into it, and so it's big, but it's in still it's incredible how far we've come, but it's still in the early stages, right? Like, this is just the beginning. So preparing and being mindful of all of it now, it's more important than ever before, right? It's not, oh, we got ChatGPT and, yeah, we do it, we use it to do a little bit of consulting here and there. No. That, ChatGPT was just, what triggered it, but it is everywhere and it will continue to be everywhere. And on that note, it's everywhere. It's SEO, it's AI search optimization, but it's also video content with AI, and being mindful of, because now they can use all of these tools also to trick us, right? So,
Oh yeah. We've
being
seen a lot of
responsible
deep
with
fakes
it,
that
right?
are getting incredible now.
So, and because you can train all of it, like, we are completely exposed, right? So also then brings you and us together, which is technology and what we do. It's how do you make sure that all the AI tools you're using are secure and keeping your information secured, and how much can you share of your business with those AI tools, and how much can you share of yourself with those AI tools? Because you never know. You might find your face somewhere you didn't even know you existed, right? So
Yeah, no,
it's a big
it's
conversation. It's a big
yeah,
topic.
actually, it's beyond big topic because every organization I talk to, from both cybersecurity, business efficiencies, tools, we're in the dawn of a new and unproven area. My favorite is when I hear the word expert. They're theoretically, unless you've been designing AI from inception, ChatGPT's out, what, 2, 3 years now?
True.
And
True.
realistically, 2 years ago, it was not that good. Like I played around with it 2 years ago or so, and it was
Yeah.
very basic and rudimentary. Last year, Microsoft launched Copilot to the masses almost a year ago today. And
Mm-hmm.
then, Google revamped Gemini sometime shortly after. I think it was in the spring, summer of 2024. So, most people have less than 1,000 hours using this technology. And, by all measures, there's no such thing as an expert with, 500 to 1,000 hours of usage, even if you lived it
Yeah.
24/7 since the launch of it a year ago.
I started, believe it or not, I started using AI before ChatGPT was a thing.
Really?
Um, yeah. So, at the old agency, we were already exploring AI tools to speed up our content creation. And so when I first started, we had two tools that we were using regularly. One was called Jasper AI, which was for content, which we now completely got rid of because we use, there's so many other new tools now that replace that for like more cost effective. Because I remember when Jasper was like pretty big 3.5 years ago. I think it's maybe four.
Right.
When I first heard of it, but it was insanely expensive. I think the it was it was very limited because you had limit of how much content you could create, and it was like $150 a subscription or something like 150. I can't remember, depending on the plan, I guess. But then there was another tool. I don't recall the name right this second. But then, slowly they started coming out with newer things. So then we were using another tool for SEO. And that was like the very first tool I used that combined content creation with SEO. And it was amazing. That made our SEO process so much easier. And then there was another one that was really popular when it first came out because it was revolutionary, was Surfer.io. I think it's the website. They did a lot of content recommendations based off AI recommendations, right? And it created like these whole kind of content mapping, let's call it, right? Content around keywords that were all related or that had some sort of like that you can interlink. It was complex, but it was revolutionary. And then now you can do all of that in like 3 seconds with Chat GPT and a Chat GPT that
Yeah.
you create yourself. But when that first came out, it was amazing, right? And it would rank how your content was, and now there's a bunch of different tools that do the same thing for a fraction of the cost. I think that one was another one that was like $120 subscription, and you could only write like 3 blogs a month or something like that. Now you
Yeah.
can
No.
write unlimited for $20. So
Yeah. And it's going to only get better every year and every month. And every month there's a new tool that's coming out. And
yeah,
it reminds me of when
but
all
yeah,
the search engines were out there 20 years ago between
exactly.
Yahoo and,
Yeah,
Netscape. And at the end of the day, one by one, they all either got acquired or they all went out of
I'll
business
take
because, between Google and a few others, that they all ended up,
it.
losing the market share and couldn't keep up. I think we're going to see some consolidation in another year or so when money becomes
Probably.
available and companies are going to
Yeah,
start making those acquisitions. But for now, it's very interesting seeing this competitive market of companies trying to acquire that market share.
yeah,
So just to do a little bit of a shift, we've talked about how things have changed. There's certain challenges in the industry. Companies are struggling to figure out, where to invest their marketing dollars. Do I open up a new TikTok account? Do I invest in Twitter? Is Google PPC still a valid thing? And we're looking at this big shuffle. There's really a very cool opportunity. And so, where are the opportunities for business in your sector to invest time and effort? I know we kind of touched on it in the sense of a broad stroke, but speaking as a company like myself or any other business listening to this podcast, if I were going to say 2025 is a year that I can actually gain some market share, make a massive impact, what would be the one or two touch points that I should really be honing in on to build up that brand reputation, that, cost per click or whatever it is, that to drive more business and brand awareness around my company this year?
Video content. That
Video.
is literally, yeah. So if look at LinkedIn, just, not too, what was it, 2 months ago, I introduced video in their platform. So their version
Right.
now of Reels and TikTok, right? So now you
I've
can
noticed
do,
that.
yeah. So now you have video for pretty much every platform. Of course, TikTok, it's the biggest one, followed by Instagram and the Reels. But you have video now in everywhere, right? Like YouTube Shorts. So there is absolutely now no reason not to be creating some sort of video content regularly and putting it everywhere. And that's what we do for every one of our clients nowadays. We're just creating, and for ourselves, right? Like we're now on a regular schedule, posting video content regularly. In video content, people misunderstand it, and it does not have to be you talking always. Video content
I was
can
just going to say,
be,
like, not every
yeah, it can
customer is
be
comfortable in being
faceless.
in front of a camera.
Exactly. So just we do a lot of faceless. We do a lot of faceless content for our own brand because it's time consuming, right? Faceless, with a lot of the tools that we use nowadays, they can be generated and not be as time consuming as sitting down and recording a bunch of videos. But you can have balance, right? Some in person content and some content that's faceless, as long as you're creating some sort of video content regularly, because that's where the
Right.
market is gone, right? Like it's not going there, it's already there, right? So people now scroll, you know, through TikTok and Instagram Reels, yeah, and then they spend far more time on those platforms and not, YouTube, um, Shorts as well. But that's where they are living, and it's funny because you go into LinkedIn, and I find myself, even when I'm in LinkedIn, if I see video, I'm gonna start scrolling through videos, right? So it's applying to every network. So that's where I would put dollars. Advertising with video, sponsor content, video content is probably, the best money you're going to spend now. I'm not saying that Google is not a good option still. People still Google mostly everything, especially if you're B2C. They're going to Google, best restaurant in town. So make sure you have your Google stuff, but make sure that that they can also find you on Instagram. And actually, interesting, bit here, demographics is pretty big when it comes to search. So people in between teens and late 20s will almost always rely on Instagram and TikTok for searching for places to eat or shopping, while the older demographic, 30 and up, will still Google. So
Right.
you want to make sure you're appealing to both or to the different demographics as well, but obviously be heavy where your ideal customer is, right? So if you're
Where the spending power is.
they're probably still going to Google it, but then they're going to also look you up in LinkedIn. So that's where you're going to spend your dollars because that's where you're going to find your ideal customer. But if you're B2C and you own a restaurant, hey, people are going to Google, yes, but they are definitely going to go into your Instagram and scroll and see what kind of dishes they're going to see in there, what kind of atmosphere and all of that. Make sure that you're doing that as well. Same thing, right? Like, I now, I mean, my job is to scroll, right? Kind of in a
Yeah.
sense. So, and to look at different things. So you're scrolling, and like if I'm servicing, let's say we're working with consultants and IT, we want to see what's out there, right? Or, if you're, I don't know, physiotherapy, right? You want to see what other companies are also advertising, and, what they're doing. So you're scrolling, you search, right? IT in Toronto, right? Well, who and what are they posting, and how many clicks they have, how many views, how many impressions, all that stuff. You need to know those things as a business owner. What is your competitor doing? And is he doing it better than you? And if they are, what are they doing better than you? Because you need to match it or do better, right? And so if they're creating videos, what kind of videos are they creating? What kind of content are they posting about? That's all now. That's what we do for you, right? Like it's our job to go and look at all those things and then do one better, right? Or at least make sure that we're matching it.
Yeah, it's
Because that's how
interesting.
you.
I look at it like when you talked about the B2C stuff, like I think there's been 2 or 3 restaurants that I know of in Toronto. One famous, it's now famous burger joint out on the east end of Toronto, and they were basically closing down, and I think they were not looking to reopen. And thanks to social media, not only did they reopen this burger joint, they're thriving, and they're like with tens upon tens of thousands of followers for like a, call it vintage 30-year-old, 40-year-old burger joint in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been other cases where they were like inches away from closing their restaurants down because traffic wasn't there. And some social media influencer came in there, did a cute little video clip on it, presented the food properly, gave it some great reviews that, that influencer had a good following. And next thing you know, there's lines out the door that you have to wait half an hour to an hour for a pizza today. So media and social media now, what's amazing about it, I find, is that you don't need to be a $100,000 budget. You can get away with smaller budgets with the right audience and the right,
Mm-hmm.
social influencers today. And next thing you know, your business is thriving. And even to B2B, it's kind of interesting. I sometimes struggle between the funny video, viral video that people still do, 20 years later. I've seen some guy, window door manufacturers make it look funny. As much as windows
Mm-hmm.
and doors are not very funny, but they're still doing funny videos just to
Yeah.
be a little bit cheeky and, a little bit entertaining. And you find it amusing because the commercial world that we used to watch, when you used to watch TV and used to watch commercials and you had to watch
Right.
commercials, it's kind of like we just passed with the Super Bowl. And, part of the pastime with Super Bowl is watching Super Bowl
There's
commercials because,
commercials. Yeah.
yeah, because they're either usually hilarious or there's something so special about them that, all the marketing agencies, I think, spend a whole year planning around their Super Bowl commercials. And I think Hellman's this year did the best because they brought back the Harry Met Sally commercial
Oh yeah,
slash,
that was really funny. Yeah.
now granted, you may need to be a certain age. I'm going to say
To
30
understand
plus
it.
to know the movie, or you've seen at least when Harry Met Sally, like 25, 30 years ago when this movie came
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
But, just seeing the whole Katz's Deli being repositioned the exact same way. And, it was just awesome seeing them again at that restaurant and doing the whole skit like they did 30 years
They
ago
did.
or
That was really
25
good.
years
Yeah.
ago. So it was very special. I thought that was, for me, that was like hands down the winner. There was some other really good
I
ones,
agree.
but
Yeah.
that I would say was the best commercial out of all the commercials for Super Bowl
It
this
was
year.
pretty funny. It was so good.
And that's great. Yeah, so it's really interesting. I'm really intrigued by that because I think video is definitely unique, and I think video today, people, it doesn't matter your level of reading, doesn't matter your level of content consumption. The reality is we used to spend hours on television. Now we've moved that consumption
For that
time from
little screens.
watching soap operas to, whatever it is. We watch game shows, soap operas,
Yeah.
all the, I remember growing up, it was like after dinner, it was like the family gathered around the
The
television,
TV.
and we
Yep.
would watch Cheers or,
Yep.
whatever TV show, family sitcoms, all the way to adult. sitcoms at night, and now it's nobody does that anymore. Very few people do, and everyone's Netflix or some sort of on-demand content. But there's that commercial content, that unique
Mm-hmm.
proposition, that unique content, which is, I think, what everybody's talking about today is, what's going to drive traffic is your unique content, not just the
Agree.
boilerplate. We do windows and doors, and here's a picture of my window and door, or here's my,
Yep.
pizza. Every pizza in a photo looks perfect, but,
Yes.
seeing it being pulled out of an
The
oven and
real
actually you
stuff.
cutting it,
Yeah.
it makes you
That
kind
would
of want to,
do eat it,
yeah,
right? No matter how
yeah,
it looks.
exactly. Doesn't matter what it is.
Um,
Anybody can buy a computer. It's no big deal
yeah.
about buying a computer. It's the reality is what you make it do, what you do with it, which is make it unique or have an
Yeah.
interesting perspective of providing the services around it. So I think it's very, very cool. And video, I would say, is top on my totem pole. And if there was one
Yeah.
other
And on
factor,
video.
what would you
And
say?
before we finish the topic
Yeah.
of on video, please do not forget about YouTube content. If you don't know, YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world after Google.
Wow.
So do not dismiss long form content. Again, same idea. It doesn't have to be a long video, super produced or anything like that. It could be just you explaining something that is useful to your audience.
Right.
And on that note, for some people, they just don't want to create content. It's hard. People are not necessarily open to sitting there and talking to the camera. I know quite a few, but this is long form content, two people talking about relevant topics, and we can make this, a long form YouTube video for your brand, right? Like that's part of what we're doing with our clients, right? Like sitting down, having conversations is long content and people will watch. I mean, you have people like Gary V, which is a pretty big marketer, and all he talks about every day is video. And he now has I don't know if you've seen this, but he has a camera set up on his desk and he records his entire day to create, like, he is live streaming just to create content. You can see him working. Obviously, it's muted, and in some cases you can't hear. But he talked about this, right? Like, make your channel a live stream, and believe it or not, so live stream TikTok will actually prioritize live content. So
Right.
streaming live to TikTok will get you more eyes than posted content.
Right.
Think Instagram is doing something similar, not the same algorithm, because I think TikTok is doing a better job at that, but similar idea. If you're live, they'll give priority. The algorithm will give priority to those that are live, and that's why when you're scrolling, you see live stream, right? Um,
I noticed that even on YouTube now, they have the live feed, and you can see
yeah,
like all these new live things going on all the time. And they got the little red icon in the bottom right
yeah.
corner.
So for the future, for things like this recording, we can hit the live button, and this can stream now to YouTube and different social networks. And now we're live on those networks, and then we get more eyeballs. So those are things that you can consider if you're wanting to do content without the pressure of having to pre-record and do all that. This is awesome, right? Like, you just have a conversation, it's genuine, you're creating your content, you're streaming, you're doing all the things that the networks want you to do, and creating all that content and putting your brand out there and creating all that brand awareness.
Wow. I didn't even think about that as well. And I guess the evolving aspect around video, there's going to be
Mm-hmm.
more and more demand, not only for original content and live content, and now search engine of the video content,
Yep.
just going to continue evolving. And I remember they were saying that the video search will surpass regular web search in the
And
sense
that's
of
why
website
YouTube is the
search.
second biggest. right?
Yeah, I think at some point
And
that'll eclipse at some point
yeah,
pretty soon.
and believe it or not, SEO for YouTube on its own, it's like a whole expertise, right? Because you do it slightly different than if when you're doing SEO for Google,
Yep.
right? Which is kind of the same, SEO for LinkedIn, it's using your hashtags, and same with Facebook. And each one of them wants you to do something specific to the network, right? And specific content, and the way you post the one, it's different. So part of what we do is help clients be able to do all of those things with all that extra, labor and time consuming,
Right.
right?
No, it's interesting. And I look at it like the video, it's really interesting when you talked about long form, because I look at it like, there's been companies out there, like let's call it appliance repair companies. I've seen this all over the place, like how to fix, and all of a
Yep.
sudden there's like all these, repair people that are just handy people at home, plus on top of the big companies that are now doing repair videos. And I remember the original one I saw, I think it was around an appliance in the appliance store, that's what they do. They ended up picking up so much business because they ended up um, not only telling people how to try to fix the small stuff, but when the customer or the prospect couldn't get it fixed, they perceived them as a trusted source. So they ended up
Expertise, right?
using them as the repair company when they couldn't actually fix it themselves, or even if they could, they would buy the spare parts from them.
Yep.
So their business accelerated because they were providing that complimentary, non-aggressive sales strategy and providing the free advice. So it's it's amazing to see the changes around the perspective of these videos and how content's
Yep.
created, and
It's
what
crazy.
turns out to be out of that whole thing is just incredible.
Yep. It's
So,
it's a lot.
uh, yeah, it's impossible, and obviously we can go on a whole afternoon web, seminar on
We
this,
could.
and I think
Yeah.
we can set up some other conversations specific around maybe some video content and maybe what customers and what people would be typically doing to create some of this live feeds. But,
Yep.
just to wrap up the conversation, we touched on, AI, we touched upon video, we touched upon Google, the evolution of business and B2B, B2C, you know, sort of wrapping things up. We're coming down to, budgets. We're talking about companies, trying to squeeze the most out of budgets this year. Even some companies are clawing back on budgets. I always look at it as a big conversation when marketing is there, because
Hmm.
you can spend your money any which way. Tough times, people like to say we're going to spend less. Good times, we can spend more. You know, with your opinion, I'm playing around with this because when you look at, we've kind of touched on a lot of different things around specific
Hmm.
marketing tactics.
Yeah.
Being in the marketing, being in the market, sorry, being in the market that we're in today, do we want to look at what kind of budget do we want? Should we spend a little bit more this year on marketing and advertising? Do we, and obviously I'm trying to be impartial here, but and you being in the marketing perspective, I'm looking at your opinion. Like, are you seeing businesses spend less, spend more? Are they pivoting to a single point strategy in the sense of, okay, let's say we have a $5,000 or $10,000 a month budget, could be $100 month budget. Do we spend all of it in one bucket? Are we cutting back on some of that budget? Do we spend 30% on Google, 50% on video, and the balance of it on other forms of social media and advertising and marketing, or conventional marketing? Because we didn't even touch on that, but obviously we have a
Hmm.
limited time today. So, what would you say as a wrap up and conclusion on, should companies look at spending more or less? And if they are going to spend, what kind of investment, doesn't have to be all their budget, but percentage wise of their budget, whatever that may be, where should they
Yeah.
focus their budgets?
So as a rule, so it's a big topic because budget
Sure.
it's subjective to the size of the business, what they're doing, what kind of business, B2B, B2C, if what kind of target market they're going for. So that all changes how we plan budgeting. And that's why having strategy and not randomness, it's so important, right? So I mean, you and I have done our strategy sessions to kind of decide where we're going to go with what we're doing for the year, right? So when you sit down and you look at size of the business, is it a B2B or B2C, that very much decides to budget. Because I can come and say so just a couple of examples, right? And let's say we have a clinic, right? Mostly B2C, they don't need to advertise in LinkedIn, right? So they can get away with advertising in something like Meta, which pay-per-click is super cheap, and Google, and get a lot of impressions and engagement, which is very different for a B2B company where they need to think about Google and mostly LinkedIn, because that's where they're going to get the eyeballs, and LinkedIn is very expensive to advertise in, right? So
Yes.
your budget changes depending on what you're doing and your target audience and all that stuff. So it really, there is really not a one size fit all, right? But what we try to do is we try to accommodate our strategy to the size of the business. And then the budget allocation obviously depends also on what they're willing to spend. But I think for businesses, the main thing is we got to stop thinking that marketing is just an expense, right? Because I don't think that's it at all, right? Like, marketing is what funnels new eyeballs to your business and your sales team, right? And so, yes, it's spending money, but and what it's often misunderstood is that you're spending the money in marketing, and sales team is generating the sales and kind of saying, oh, but we have all the return on investment. But it was marketing that initially started that process, right? It has to start somewhere. So your top of the funnel is your marketing that flows down to your sales team, right? And so what you have to focus your efforts is making sure that your marketing, it's focusing on revenue generating activities, right? So you're looking at things that are going to eventually bring those new potential customers, right? And make sure that your cost of acquisition is, and all those things that ultimately will decide if it's a good investment or not a good investment, right? And you and I have had these conversations, right? When we're planning, we'll have to play around and make sure that what we're doing, it's ultimately hopefully translating into some sort of revenue generating activity, right? And
Correct.
so there is no size fits all, but a general rule, it's you're spending roughly 10% of your revenue in some sort of marketing revenue generating activity, right? So
Right.
for a small business, that might be 10 grand for the year. For a mid-sized business, you start looking at also, are you hiring internal people? That's all part of your marketing budget. Are you hiring agencies? Are you hiring, fractional CMOs, all that stuff? So it really depends,
Yeah.
but just sit down and have strategy sessions and really do plan out. And if I could say, and stop looking at marketing as a expenditure, start looking at it as marketing, is the top of where you start your revenue generating activities that then flow to your sales department.
And when you look at it, most businesses that start a business, or most people that start a business, your original pool is your friends and family.
Yeah,
Eventually, you exhaust your friends and family and the referrals that you can
exactly.
get, and then you rely on marketing and advertisement to get your word out.
Perfect. Yep.
And those that fail to pivot usually fail in the business. The
Yes.
second biggest challenge, and I can tell you after 25 years of experience and almost 35 years of being self-employed, um, you can't sit on your hands when it comes to the design and the concepts around marketing, because when you start your business, one form of advertisement may work today, No different than 10
Not
years ago.
tomorrow.
If you were ranked first on any Google web page, you pretty much were guaranteed business.
Not today.
We as a business ourselves had to go back to the drawing board, retool, revisit, relook at everything that we had as a company. And even if we stayed with the same marketing agency that we were with at the time, and we've been through several over the last 20 years, they just failed to continue updating their offering for our business, and our business evolved from the offerings that they were bringing to the table. So we had to move to firms that were better
Hmm.
situated for our business model. And, even if you're happy with your marketing firm, it's always good to bring in, call it an external party or an external source to kind of, call it shake the tree a bit and give them a different perspective so that you can go back with fresh ideas and possibly, revigorate your initiatives so that you've got a new perspective on what's coming down the pipe. And
And
hopefully
even
this
if,
podcast was insightful for everybody.
yeah, and even if your current marketing agency, like, there's nothing wrong with, feeling comfortable, right? But as a marketing agency owner, should be bringing new ideas constantly, right? You're gonna have these conversations, right? It's not just like the same all the time, right? Like, how are we going to evolve? How are we going to pivot? What can we do different, or what can we do that we're not doing to generate more, or whatever the case might be. So that's also part of the conversations, right? It
Yeah,
should be, at
agreed.
least.
For sure. Well, Carolina, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. I want to thank
Thank
everybody
you.
who was listening to it today. Thank you for everybody. And looking forward to our next conversation, Carolina, which I'm sure we'll have very soon. And thank you, everybody. Have
Sounds
yourself a
good.
great day.
Thank you.